Mara Ellington's hand slammed the folder against my chest so hard the papers burst out, scattering across the office like confetti at a funeral. People froze, phones stopped, breathing stopped. "Get out!" She didn't shout. She hissed it. Like I was an infection she finally found the courage to cut out. I stood there soaked in the coffee she'd spilled on me 5 minutes earlier and took the longest walk of my life past the staring faces. My shoes squeaked against the polished floor. Every step echoed. Everyone watched. I felt their eyes burning into my coffee-stained blouse, into my trembling hands, into my shattered dignity. The automatic doors slid open behind me, and the cold air hit my face like a slap. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because looking back would mean accepting that this nightmare was real, that my boss had just destroyed me in front of 30 witnesses, that everything I'd worked for had just exploded in the most humiliating way possible. I wiped the coffee stains from my blouse in the bathroom mirror, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper towels. My reflection stared back at me, mascara smudged, eyes red, face pale. "My name is Lila Rowan," I whispered to that broken reflection. And up until 10 minutes ago, I thought I had the best job of my life. The bathroom was empty, silent except for the drip of the faucet and my ragged breathing. I stared at the red print from Mara's nail polish still visible on the folder she'd shoved into my chest. It looked like a wound. Maybe it was. I'd spent 3 years at Silverstone Marketing Agency, 3 years of early mornings and late nights, 3 years of believing that hard work mattered, that excellence would be recognized, that loyalty would be rewarded. I pressed my palms against the cold marble sink and closed my eyes. Let me tell you how my boss decided I was disposable. The day Dana joined the team, everything shifted. It was a Tuesday morning in March when Mara walked into our weekly meeting with a bright smile and a new face. "Everyone, this is Dana Prescott. She'll be joining us as a marketing coordinator." Dana was loud, chaotic, unprepared, and for reasons I couldn't understand, Mara adored her from the first moment. When Dana messed up client presentations, Mara smiled and said it was charming authenticity. When I fixed her mistakes behind the scenes, Mara frowned and told me I was overstepping boundaries. When I worked until 9 at night finishing campaign materials, nobody noticed. When Dana arrived at 10 in the morning, Mara giggled and bought her breakfast from the cafe downstairs. I watched this pattern develop over weeks. Favoritism bloomed like mold in a dark corner. But I told myself it was temporary, that Mara would see the truth eventually. That merit would win. I was so wrong. The first real cut came during our April team meeting. The lights dimmed, the projector hummed to life. My presentation, 3 weeks of research, design, and strategy appeared on the screen under Dana's name. My stomach dropped. My heart stopped. Mara clapped enthusiastically. "Dana, this is exceptional work. Truly innovative thinking." Everyone clapped. The sound felt like thunder in my ears. I sat frozen in my chair, staring at my own work being celebrated under someone else's name. Charts I'd built, copy I'd written, designs I'd created, all credited to Dana. I looked across the table at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her face was flushed, her smile tight and uncomfortable. She knew. Of course she knew. After the meeting, I caught her in the hallway. "Dana, that was my presentation." She looked at the floor. "Mara asked me to present it. I'm sorry." Then she walked away. I should have walked out then, but I didn't. A major client account started collapsing in May. Hartwell Industries, our biggest contract, was threatening to leave because someone forgot to submit a crucial quarterly update. The deadline had passed 2 weeks earlier. Panic rippled through the office. Mara called an emergency meeting, her voice sharp with stress. "Someone dropped the ball. I need to know who." I spent 3 hours tracing file logs, email chains, and calendar entries. The trail led to one person, Dana. She'd been assigned the Hartwell update in March. She'd acknowledged the deadline. She'd never submitted anything. I knocked on Mara's office door that evening, my evidence folder in hand. I kept my voice calm, polite, factual. "Mara, I traced the issue. Dana missed the submission deadline. Her smile died instantly. The warmth drained from her face like water from a broken glass. Lila, she said slowly, this is not your place. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment she quietly declared war. The retaliation began immediately. The next week, Mara rewrote my schedule without notice. I arrived Monday morning to find myself assigned to data entry grunt work far beneath my role as senior coordinator. She critiqued my tone in emails I hadn't even written. She reassigned my projects to junior staff. She excluded me from client calls I'd been leading for months. Every interaction became a minefield. Every request became a trap. She'd ask for one thing, then accuse me of doing the wrong thing. She'd set impossible deadlines, then criticize me for rushing. And Dana was promoted to co-lead of the Hartwell account, the account she'd nearly destroyed. I watched her move into the office next to Mara's. I watched them laugh together through the glass walls. I watched my career being dismantled piece by piece, but the worst hit came at the next team meeting in early June. Mara called me into her office with a serene smile that didn't reach her eyes. On her desk sat a document I'd never seen before, a performance improvement plan. I picked it up with trembling hands and read through fabricated issues, invented complaints, false deadlines I'd supposedly missed. You've been underperforming, Lila, Mara said softly, leaning back in her leather chair. Multiple team members have expressed concerns about your work quality and attitude. My throat tightened. What team members? What specific concerns? She waved her hand dismissively. That's confidential. But this PIP outlines clear expectations. You have 30 days to improve. She slid a pen across the desk. Sign it, Lila, or things will get complicated. I stared at that pen like it was a loaded gun. My hands shook, my vision blurred. But somewhere deep in my chest, something hardened. I set the pen down. I need time to review this, her smile froze. You have until tomorrow? I walked out with the unsigned PIP, and I realized I needed to protect myself. That night, I made a decision. No outbursts, no panic, no revenge fantasies, just silence and documentation. I created a private folder on my personal laptop and started collecting everything. Every email from Mara, every contradictory instruction, every lie Dana told in meetings, every project I'd completed that was credited to someone else. I saved calendar invitations that proved I'd been excluded from meetings. I copied file logs showing my actual work. I documented every interaction with timestamps and details. I became quiet, controlled, invisible, like sharpening a blade slowly in the dark. At work, I smiled and nodded. I followed every instruction exactly as given. I stopped arguing. I stopped defending myself. I just watched and recorded. Mara seemed pleased by my sudden compliance. She thought she'd broken me. She had no idea what I was building. Then came the client visit in late June, and everything accelerated. The morning of the Hartwell Industries site visit, Mara pulled me aside. Lila, I need you to greet the client in the lobby at 9. I nodded and made a note. At 8:30 she called me again. Why aren't you preparing the boardroom? Dana can't do everything herself. I hurried to the boardroom, arranged materials, checked the presentation system. At 8:45, Mara appeared in the doorway, eyes flashing. Why are you in the boardroom? You should be greeting the client downstairs. I grabbed my phone and headed for the elevator. Contradiction after contradiction, each instruction undermined the last, but I followed every order exactly as given. And I timestamped each one, text messages, voice memos, calendar notes. I documented it all in real time. At 8:55, I stood in the lobby, waiting. At 9:15, the client arrived early through the side entrance, directly into chaos. Victor Hartwell walked into the main floor and immediately frowned. He saw me standing in the hallway, exactly where Mara had told me to wait. He saw the boardroom half prepared, with chairs askew and missing materials. He saw Dana scrambling with the wrong presentation files, her face flushed with panic. "Where's the account team?" he asked, his voice edged with confusion. "This doesn't feel coordinated." Mara appeared from her office, her professional smile plastered on but her eyes darting wildly. She looked at the incomplete boardroom. She looked at Dana's obvious stress. She looked at me standing in the hall foul way, and I saw the calculation happen in her eyes. She needed a scapegoat, someone to blame for the disaster unfolding in front of our most important client. Her gaze locked onto me with laser focus. And I knew what was coming. She stormed toward me, coffee cup in hand, her face twisted with barely controlled rage. I stood perfectly still. She crashed straight into me. I didn't move and I didn't step aside. I let it happen exactly as she intended. The cup exploded across my blouse, hot liquid soaking through the fabric and burning my skin. Gasps echoed through the hallway. My skin burned from the heat and from the humiliation. Every eye in the office turned toward us. Dana froze in the boardroom doorway. Victor Hartwell stopped mid-step, his mouth open. "Look what you made me do," Mara snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. She gestured at her stained blazer, at the coffee puddles spreading across the floor. "Standing in the middle of the hallway like an obstacle. Do you ever think?" The burns on my chest throbbed, my face flushed hot with shame. But somewhere underneath the humiliation, I felt something else. Clarity. This wasn't an accident. This was theatre. She'd created a scene to shift blame in front of the client, and everyone had witnessed it. Later that morning, after a disastrous client meeting where nothing went right, Mara stormed into the hallway where I'd been directed to wait. Her face was red, her hands were shaking. She held the client folder in her fist like a weapon. "You!" she hissed, loud enough for everyone on the floor to hear. "You're costing me everything." She shoved the folder against my chest so hard I stumbled backward. Papers exploded into the air, floating down like snow. "Get out!" Her voice was ice, pure hatred. I looked around at the frozen faces, at Dana smirking behind Mara's shoulder, at the junior staff staring with wide eyes, at the colleagues I'd worked alongside for 3 years. My world was collapsing in slow motion. But as I bent to pick up the scattered papers, my hands steady despite everything. One thought crystallized in my phenomenad. This was intentional, calculated, designed to humiliate me into quitting. But she didn't know I'd been calculating too. I walked outside into the June heat. The sun felt too bright, the air too thick. I walked 3 blocks to a small park and sat on a bench under a maple tree. My blouse was still damp with coffee. My hands were still shaking. But I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't quit. Instead, I opened my phone and uploaded every time-stamped file to a secure cloud folder. Every email chain. Every contradictory instruction from that morning. Every piece of evidence I'd been collecting for weeks. Then I organized it chronologically in a single document. Times, dates, witnesses, patterns of behavior. I labeled it clearly and saved 3 backup copies. The shaking in my hands finally stopped. My breathing slowed, the panic faded, replaced by something sharper, purpose. I had one more thing to do. I scrolled through my contacts and made a quiet call to someone I knew would understand, someone who'd been watching the same dysfunction unfold from a different angle. Mark answered on the second ring. He was the senior accountant, quiet and observant, chronically ignored by Mara despite his 15 years at the company. "Lila?" His voice sounded cautious. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Mark, I need to ask you something about Dana's expense approvals." Silence, then a long sigh. "You noticed that too?" "How long has it been happening?" I asked, my voice steady. "Too long," he said quietly. "She's been approving expenses she has no authorization to touch. Conference registrations, client dinners, equipment purchases, things that should go through me or Mara. I flagged it twice. Both times Mara told me to let it go." My heart raced. "Do you have records?" "Everything. I document everything, Lila. It's the only way to stay sane here." "Mark," I said carefully, "I think we might need those records soon." He was quiet for a moment. "I think you're right. He wasn't the only ally I had. I realized that as I hung up." The next morning, I stopped by the front desk before heading upstairs. Elise had worked reception for 6 years. Mara treated her like furniture, invisible, forgettable, irrelevant. But Elise saw everything. She controlled the access logs, the security footage, the visitor records. "Lila," she said softly when she saw me, "are you okay? Yesterday was awful." I leaned against the desk. "Elise, I need to ask you something. Have you ever noticed anything strange with file timestamps or access logs?" Her eyes widened slightly. Then she glanced around and lowered her voice. "Yes, multiple times in the last 2 months. Document timestamps that don't match when they were actually created. Files accessed from Dana's account when she wasn't even in the building." "You noticed that?" "I notice everything," she said quietly. "Lila, you're not crazy. Something's been wrong here for a while." She hesitated, then added, "I have copies of the access logs, just in case." Proof. Cold, hard proof from an unexpected source. I squeezed her hand. "Thank you." Then something else happened that changed everything. That afternoon, an email appeared in my personal inbox. The sender, Victor Hartwell. My heart hammered as I opened it. "Lila, I'm confused about the account structure. Are you still the lead coordinator for our campaigns? Communication has been erratic for the past month, and yesterday's meeting was concerning. I'd appreciate clarification on who's actually managing our account." He sounded frustrated. "Tired. Ready to escalate." This was the opening I needed. I replied carefully, professionally. "Mr. Hartwell, thank you for reaching out. I'd be happy to discuss the account status and recent communication challenges. Would you be available for a brief call?" He responded within minutes. "How about tomorrow at 2? The call lasted 30 minutes. I didn't badmouth anyone. I didn't make accusations. I simply walked him through the timeline of the account over the past 3 months. I explained which deliverables I'd completed and when. I showed him the communication breakdowns with specific dates. Everything he described lined up perfectly with the discrepancies I'd been documenting. At the end of our call, Victor said something that made my pulse quicken. "Lila, I'm going to request a formal review meeting with senior leadership. This level of dysfunction isn't acceptable for an account of our size." He paused. "Would you be willing to attend and provide your perspective?" My throat was dry. "Yes, I'd be willing to do that." "Good. I'll contact the executives directly. This shouldn't go through Mara." After we hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen for a long moment. This was it. The point of no return. If I attended that meeting, if I spoke honestly, there would be no going back. Mara would know I'd escalated. She'd retaliate harder, unless the truth protected me. I spent the evening organizing my documentation into a clear, factual presentation. No emotion, no exaggeration, just timeline, evidence, and impact. Then I waited. 2 days later, senior leadership emailed me directly, and the floor cracked beneath Mara's feet. The email was brief and professional. Lila, we've received a formal complaint from Hartwell Industries regarding account management and team coordination. We'd like your version of recent events before proceeding with a review. Please provide a detailed timeline at your earliest convenience. I read it 3 times. My hands trembled as I attached my documentation file. Everything I'd collected, every timestamp, every contradictory instruction, every piece of evidence showing the pattern of retaliation and dysfunction. I wrote a brief cover note explaining that I was providing factual information to help resolve the client's concerns. No accusations, no emotional appeals. Just facts. I hit send at 7 in the evening. Their reply came at 9. We'll handle this. Please keep this matter confidential. Those 4 words, we'll handle this, meant everything was about to change. I closed my laptop and finally let myself breathe. But Mara had already started sensing something shifting beneath her feet, and she was beginning to panic. My phone rang at 7 the next evening. Mara's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it until it went to voicemail. She texted 30 seconds later, "Lila, we should talk about yesterday. Call me." I didn't reply. Another text. "I think there's been some miscommunication. Let's clear the air." Still nothing from me. The emails started coming. The tone shifted like weather changing, from superiority to concern to barely concealed desperation. "Lila, let's have coffee and discuss things professionally. I may have been too harsh. I've been under stress. Don't involve anyone else in this. We can resolve it internally." Each message revealed more fear. She knew something was happening. She could feel control slipping from her fingers, but she didn't know what I'd already done, or who I'd already spoken with. I saved every message, documented every contact attempt, and said nothing. Silence was its own kind of power. The next morning, the earthquake finally hit, and everyone felt it. The conference room on the executive floor was full. I walked in at 9 and felt the weight of every gaze. The CEO and 2 vice presidents sat at the head of the table. Victor Hartwell sat to their right, his face serious. Mark sat quietly in the corner, his accounting files stacked neatly. Elise was there too, looking nervous but determined. And Mara sat across from me, pale and jittery, clutching a notebook like a life preserver. Dana sat beside her, eyes down. The CEO opened the meeting with calm authority. "We're here to address concerns raised by Hartwell Industries regarding account management and team coordination." He turned to Mara. "Can you walk us through your management approach for this account?" She started talking. Her words came fast, tangled, defensive. She contradicted herself 3 times in 5 minutes. She blamed communication gaps, system failures, team capacity issues. When Dana tried to interrupt with a supportive comment, one of the vice presidents raised a hand. "Let her finish, please." Then they asked me to speak. I looked at Mara across the table. Her eyes were wide, pleading silently for mercy. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just tired clarity. "I followed every instruction exactly as given," I said quietly, "and I have the timestamps to prove it." I handed over my folder. The room fell completely silent. They read through the timeline, the contradictory instructions, the evidence of retaliation, the pattern that couldn't be explained away. Victor leaned forward. "I've reviewed Lila's work over the past year. Her campaigns consistently exceeded targets. Communication was clear and timely until approximately 3 months ago." He looked directly at Mara. "When these coordination problems began, Lila was systematically excluded from client communications. I want her reinstated as account lead immediately." Mara's mouth fell open. Her face went white. "That's not... You don't understand." But the CEO held up a hand. The decision had already been made. But reinstating me wasn't the real consequence. The audit results were about to devastate everything. The vice president opened a second folder, Mark's accounting records, Elise's access logs, a complete audit of the past 3 months. "We've identified multiple violations of company policy and financial protocols." She looked at Dana first. "Unauthorized expense approvals totaling $17,000. Equipment purchases without proper authorization, falsified vendor receipts." Dana's face crumbled. She looked at Mara desperately, but Mara was staring at the table. Additionally, the Vice President continued, we found evidence of manipulated file timestamps, fabricated performance concerns, mishandled client communications, and clear patterns of retaliatory behavior. Now she looked at Mara. This constitutes serious misconduct and a violation of management standards. The CEO spoke next, his voice formal and final. Mara Ellington, your employment with Silverstone Marketing is terminated effective immediately. Please collect your personal belongings under escort. Mara's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Her carefully constructed world collapsed in one sentence. Dana Prescott, you're also dismissed. Security will escort you both out. Neither of them looked at me as they stood. Then something unexpected happened. As Mara and Dana were led out by security, the Vice President turned to me. Lila, we owe you an apology for how this situation was allowed to develop. She paused. We'd like to offer you Mara's former position as marketing director, significant salary increase, full team authority, immediate start. The room waited. I felt every eye on me. I thought about the humiliation, the coffee stains, the folder slammed into my chest. The words, get out, hissed like poison. I thought about 3 years of loyalty crushed in a single morning, and I thought about the call I'd received yesterday, from Victor Hartwell, offering me something better. I smiled softly, genuinely. Thank you for the offer, I truly appreciate the recognition. I paused, but I've already accepted another position. Shock rippled visibly across several faces. The CEO blinked. You have? Yes. I'll be starting Monday. They wanted to know where, who, when this had happened. But I just smiled. This wasn't about revenge. It was about knowing my worth. Victor Hartwell had called me 2 days after our initial conversation. Lila, I've been thinking. Hartwell Industries is expanding our marketing division. We need someone talented, reliable, and professional. He paused. Would you consider joining our team? The offer was incredible. 20% higher salary than my current position. Full remote flexibility with quarterly in-person meetings. Actual respect built into every conversation. We'd be lucky to have you, he'd said. Those words meant everything. I accepted immediately. My start date was the following Monday. My first day, they had my desk ready, my equipment set up, and a welcome basket with a handwritten note from the executive team. Welcome to Hartwell Industries. We're excited to work with you. I sat at my new desk and realized something profound. It wasn't luck that brought me here. It was worth, value, work that spoke for itself. 3 years of excellence hadn't been wasted. It had been seen, just not by the people I'd expected. Sometimes the right people are watching from unexpected places. I returned to Silverstone Marketing only once, to collect my few remaining belongings. The hallway that once felt suffocating now felt small, powerless, irrelevant. The office that once held my entire professional identity meant nothing anymore. Elise hugged me tightly. You did the right thing, she whispered. Everyone knows it. Mark shook my hand. Thank you for having the courage to document everything. You saved more than just yourself. As I walked toward the exit with my box of belongings, I heard someone whisper behind me. She's the one who took Mara down. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I didn't gloat. I just smiled at the automatic doors sliding open and thought about how strange justice can be. When someone tells you to get out, sometimes they're really telling themselves it's time to go. I walked into the bright July sunshine, into a new job, a better life, a deserved future. No one from Silverstone ever contacted me again. And that was the real victory, not because I'd won some battle, but because I'd simply walked away to something better. And that, I realized, was always the plan I should have made from the start.